Alright, so in that video about Dan, which, by the way, I like Dan. I also like Shannon. I think Rick is a piece of shit, but I like him too. I believe that in the right position, in the right conditions, they are capable of quite a bit. That's the problem, though. These people are in their own positions and not mine, so it's difficult for them to understand it. I just had an argument with a human rights activist, civil rights activist. I'm a human rights activist. She's a civil rights activist. She had a bunch of shit to say about homeless people. So I start telling her the statistics, and she's like, that's a cop-out, and that's an excuse. I'm like, no, they're not cop-outs or excuses. They're statistics for a reason. It's because they happen. So, if you're driving to work and you blow a tire, is that an excuse or is that a fact? In my opinion, that's a fact. Now, as I was making that video, I was searching for cigarette butts because I'm addicted to tobacco. I have an aluminum foil pipe that I made so that I can smoke my tobacco. And a man saw me doing that. He's been there before. So he gave me a cigarette. Not just a cigarette. There's 4 more in here. That's somebody who, number 1, understands homelessness, and number 2, understands addiction to tobacco. I probably should quit smoking. It's a lot easier to quit smoking under situations where you're not stressed the fuck out. For me, trying to explain to a person who's never been homeless how the homeless are treated, while she's saying some very ignorant things, and I can't type the word ignorant, because in today's day and age, that's an insult. It's not meant to be an insult, it's the truth. When it comes to nuclear fission, I am ignorant. I will tell you that I'm ignorant. If I'm talking to you about nuclear fission or nuclear fusion, I'm talking out my ass. And when you ask me a question about it, and I give you an answer, I'm guessing. Because I'm ignorant. So if you call me ignorant because I say something that is incorrect, should I take that as an insult? No. There used to be something here. It's a set of stairs. Right across the street, there's a church. Now that woman who is spouting her ignorance, well, she's not a bad person. But she's a civil rights activist, which means that she probably fights for either minority rights or women's rights. That's the difference between myself and a civil rights activist. I fight for human rights. I think that we should all have equal rights. Now, on paper, we're supposed to, right? But in reality, do we? No. No, we don't. In reality, there are certain things that women get special treatment for. There are certain things that black people get special treatment for. There are certain things that white people get special treatment for. And there are certain things that males get certain treatment for. This is where special rights comes in. Special rights are something that I am 100% against. We need to give black people free shit because they're black. Well, that's stupid. See, this is a poverty issue. I think it's pretty messed up that a black man who grew up in a rich family in Beverly Hills, California, gets special rights because of the color of his skin. whereas his poverty level has more of a bearing on whether or not he should be receiving that. See, people with a good start, a better start, have a better chance. And that's a fact. When somebody starts off the way that I did, they don't stand much chance. Now for me, when I got up to my dad's and I saw him driving a Hummer H2, that's what he picked me up in. Was I proud of him for that? No, I wasn't. I looked at that and I thought to myself, you know, me and my older brother did not get a decent start because of shit like that. However, my dad did give me a Jeep. I tried to give that Jeep to Tabby and Graham. Most of the time, I'm kind of okay to drive. When I say kind of, well, it's a lot of time thinking to myself, and the more time I spend by myself, the more time I dwell on the fact that I can't see my loved ones and how much I miss them. How much I miss Miss Peaches. How much I miss Natalie. How much I miss Maddie. How much I miss Pierre. I said a lot of really mean things to people, but you know what? There's a reason for it. It's so they could understand how I felt from a first-hand experience. When you treat me like that, you don't like it when I treat you that way back, do you? Of course you don't. So why would you do it to me to begin with? When you assume the worst in me or the worst in my situation, and I try to explain to you that you're wrong and you get all butthurt about it, and then I go out of my way to assume the worst in you and your situation, well, do you have a right to be pissed off at me for treating you the way that you treated me? Also, there's the name-calling thing. Ignorant. If I call you ignorant, I'm not trying to be an asshole, but I try to steer clear of that word because you turn into a butthurt little asshole. I'm not allowed to. You're allowed to be angry at me. I'm not. Rick is allowed to be a butthurt little bitch because I showed the truth. And he's allowed to remain a butthurt little bitch to this day. Now, Shannon Alvarado saying, I never did anything to you. I never did anything wrong. I've never been nothing but nice to you. No, that's not true, Shannon. Go back and listen to our messages. Listen to your voice messages to me. Now try to think about my position and how that made me feel. You are absolutely right that you and Rick and your arguments is not my business and it's not anybody else's business, except for the fact that I was in your household and it did affect me. You got to see how it affected me. And you got to see that I was quiet. I did my best to try to be as upbeat as I could, given the situation. Now, every single night, you said you would help me, and every single night, I end up listening to you. When it's your turn to talk, I let you talk. When it's my turn to talk, I have to let you talk. Now, the first few times that we talked on the phone, I just basically had to listen to you talk nonstop about other people. You said you would call to listen, and then you just talked nonstop about other people, mostly yourself. I needed you to understand the situation, but you made no effort at that. I didn't realize it was because you were an alcoholic. I assumed that you were on meth. Now, when I was there is something that I noticed. I noticed that there is no meth paraphernalia anywhere in the house. It didn't smell like those chemicals. Obviously, you're not on methamphetamines. I got a pretty big fucking schnoz. I can usually smell that shit. But the other thing is that Shannon has never been homeless. Now Rick, he was scared shitless. Most of their arguing was Shannon saying, do you think Rick's taking advantage of me? Do you think Rick's taking advantage of me? This is what she'd ask me in front of him because she's drunk. A couple of semis going by. I don't want to be really loud because I don't want you guys to think that I'm screaming at you. Because people tend to turn into butthurt little bitches over that shit. Now Rick, his argument was that, hey, you asked me to come help you with your daughter. I'm here to help you with your daughter. You said you would help me pay my rent if I showed up and helped you with your daughter. That's what I'm doing. I'm doing as you asked me, Shannon. So then her argument was that he was always on his phone. Meanwhile, she's always on her phone. That's hypocrisy. And that right there is the moral of the story for this video. Hypocrisy. It's okay for you, but it's not okay for others. And almost everybody that I interacted with was that way. See, Rihanna and I, we were supposed to help each other. Then the situation with the children showed up. Well, all right. We will do our best to help take care of 2 children that aren't ours. But at the same time, she offered to help. I showed up to help. And she was going to help me as well. And the situation made it so that I could not help myself. It's very complicated. Here I am trying to keep my word to Miss Rihanna. And she's changing the rules and treating me like shit because I'm like, hey, you're not keeping your word, Ray Ray. But I wasn't an asshole about it. I didn't throw it in her face every day. I carried on, and I did the best I could for those children. The problem is that, well, what happens if I turn Ray Ray in? I end up homeless. Oh, there's a police officer. I end up homeless. The kids end up in the system. That guy was going pretty fast. Probably an emergency. It's nice to see the flashy lights because it usually means that they're not after a homeless person. Now here in Virginia, Bristol, Virginia, I have not seen any homeless people. That's not to say they don't exist. The guy that I'm staying with told me where the homeless people stay here, and I haven't seen them. I don't know exactly where the area is that he told me about, and I forgot the names of it. Plus, I don't know which general direction it would be. Here's another officer. He's probably going to take a left. Yep. He's going where the other one went. But I also got to see the major meth area around here. It was pointed out to me, Sean, you need to stay away from this neighborhood. This is where all the meth heads hang out. Me, I'm intelligent, and sometimes I can sit down and I can speak like this. Most of the time I'm freaking the fuck out. Now that woman with her ignorance listened to me speak. She actually listened. She didn't understand the homeless part, but she was able to understand other parts because she's a civil rights activist. That's pretty important. Dan Faber is not a bad person. He's ignorant. The situations that he was commenting on, he was ignorant of. Same as Darren O'Connor. See, Darren O'Connor accused me of things that he had no right nor place to be speaking about. Sure, he's entitled to his opinion, but at the same time, he passed judgment on me without finding out both sides, without taking a look at both sides. He just assumed. And that's rather disgusting. Your money doesn't help. Your words do. And because people took so long to speak their words, it cost me a lot more resources, and it cost others a lot more resources. A lot of these people expended resources off and on for the last 2 years. If they had spoken up way back when it first happened, it would have made a difference. The way that the homeless people are treated in the United States is disgusting. Now, even cop haters, when it's between the cops and the homeless, they just assume the homeless person's guilt. I'm used to this as a homeless person. A lot of homeless people are. Now, I don't just have to deal with the ignorance of people when it comes to homelessness. I also have to deal with the ignorance of people when it comes to someone who grew up in the system. When it comes to PTSD. When it comes to autism. Now, me personally, I thought it was just PTSD. I really didn't want the autism tag, and I knew from discussions between two doctors who, well, they were heated enough I thought they were going to come to blows. You know, I really didn't want that tag. I didn't want the autistic tag. I saw how people were treated. When I finally went to get diagnosed, the reason that I did it in specific is because of the way that I was treated by Maddie Boa's meth head friends over rumors that Maddie started, because of rumors of things that were untrue that were said by Alicia Bollinger. Now, the stalking thing, did that come from Alicia? Did that come from Natalie? Or did that come from their mother? It doesn't really matter who it came from. The fact is, it's not the truth. If you guys look at the stuff that is messages between myself and Natalie Bollinger, and myself and Alicia Bollinger, you realize that we were friends. I wasn't stalking them in Virginia. We were friends. Also, after rereading it, it occurred to me that Natalie probably had not let Alicia know that I was on the way. There's a lot of stuff in that situation where people can't remember a lot of the stuff that I say, mostly because they're talking over me, but also because there's so much of it. And that's the same thing with me and Natalie, and me and Alicia, and me and many others. You can't expect me to remember every single detail, but I remember enough of them, and that's important. The problem is, without somebody standing up for my rights where it mattered, nothing decent was going to come of this. I want my life to end every day for a reason. There's a difference between being suicidal and trying to commit suicide. The way that I am treated when I admit that I'm suicidal makes me commit suicide, attempt to commit suicide. I want an honest chance. I want hope. And every person who gave me hope procrastinated until I had none. People would offer me help, and then they would procrastinate until that help was no longer valid. And I say procrastinate because they could have done something. With the way that Miss Shannon treated me the last time around. Yeah. She basically ignored me until she realized that I was about to leave state because she hadn't kept her word. And she ignored me after treating me like shit, by the way. Her and Rick both. Rick has a bad habit of picking up her phone and pretending to be her. But he also has a bad habit of picking up her phone and, well, being an asshole. I don't need him to be an asshole. He's not willing to help. I know this. So that's why I go to Shannon. Now, a lot of people, they had the right intentions. They had good intentions. But when it came down to actually fulfilling their obligations, and are they obligated to do these things? Are they obligated to keep their word? Well, that all depends on who you are and what your opinion is. If you give your word, are you obligated to keep it? When you give your word to a disabled person and you don't keep it, and they waste their resources believing you, and then you want to throw in their face the resources that you spent. Well, what resources did you spend and why did you spend them? I needed Miss Shannon to keep her word, to write a report about that bullshit with Kara Johnson Miles. That was unacceptable. She should have never been allowed to put any of her bullshit in court. Also, I should have been allowed to show evidence of what was going on. Officer Brian Valenzuela made sure that never happened. Ken and Leah wanted to play victim. Well, that's fine. You know what? I lit their truck on fire. I actually lit the road next to their truck on fire, but the fact is I did light a fire. But I admit to it. Am I going to apologize to them for it? No, they never apologized to me for stealing my money. Don Bird never apologized to me for assaulting me. You know, it was a combination of Ken and Leah ganging up on me and screaming at me in the kitchen, along with Don Bird, and her assault against me, that resulted in me leaving to go to Miss Peaches. I was overwhelmed. I didn't want to take Ken and Leah to court. I didn't want to call the cops on them for stealing my money. I wanted to get help. I just wanted to get my money back. That's all I wanted. Now, if they hadn't stolen my money, I'd have been able to use that money to go back to Nebraska. However, the only reason that I wanted to go back to the place in Nebraska is because Ken and Leah stole my money. As soon as I was in a subservient position where I was easy to victimize, they victimized me. And I kept on hoping that Ken was going to keep his word, but he never did. And Jeff Ritter never came through. Kara Heller used to give me rides to the places that I need to go, such as my appointments. But after what happened to Natalie, they had to walk in pairs and couldn't give me a ride. For obvious safety reasons. Something that Darren O'Connor spoke about. Darren O'Connor is a pussy. That guy's a punk-ass little bitch who passed judgment on me and then did not like being judged himself. Now, everybody judges, but it's the passment of judgment that is really truly the wrong thing. A lot of these people that I spoke out about, it's not that I never judged them. A lot of them were like, you know what I like about you, Sean? You don't judge people. No, I do judge you, but I accept you. When you passed judgment on me, you were showing that, number one, you were not accepting of me, and number two, you had made an assumption. The problem is, when those assumptions result in other people being harmed, you have done something severely wrong. And I am going to pass judgment on you for that. You don't like fair and equal treatment. I get it.